found out that the sun had different isotopes of oxygen and nitrogen than the Earth, and that was a surprise because they assumed that because all of our matter came from stars in a swirling nebula, there's not a good physical reason why we would have different isotopes.
There's a bunch of surprises. Why is the isotopic abundance of deuterium in the water on the oceans on Earth different than that in comets? It's been a big mystery. Actually, we've come up with some new developments there. There are lots of mysteries, and you know what? We try and solve those mysteries. We don't say, you know what?
Yeah.
Can't understand it, it's God.
Yeah.
You know, that's just a lazy man's way out.
Right. Could I ask you, Lawrence Krauss, and I know your time is valuable. I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. The book is A Universe from Nothing by Dr. Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence, just real quickly, let me give you a list of observations I've made about the Big Bang. You say all the evidence overwhelmingly supports it. Well, there are missing collisions. This is brand new science. In the spiral galaxy clusters, millions of years of missing collisions. The astronomers, astrophysicists are saying it's embarrassing. Their words, they're too perfect. There's missing heavy metal from 1 trillion stars and 15 galaxies. They say there's millions of years of missing heavy metal. There's missing stage 3 supernovas. Spiral arms are not deformed like they would deform in a couple million years. There's a missing echo of the Big Bang. There's a missing uniform distribution of isotopes.
Everything you said is wrong. I study numerical simulations, and we are able to reproduce beautifully, in fact, better and better and better, the nature of spiral galaxies. And in fact, because of the spiral arms are stabilized by the existence of dark matter, which is one of the other bits of evidence for dark matter.
Right.
The fact that we in fact are more and more discovering early generation stars with some heavy metals, which are quite interesting, and it's one of the areas that I'm actually interested in because that's the early evolution of stars. One of the reasons we're building the James Webb Space Telescope is to look at the first generation of stars so we can answer those questions. But there's nothing, none of what you said in any way not only obviates the Big Bang.
Well, these are all missing. These are all things that you need secondary assumptions. You need rescue devices. You create unknowns.
We see the Big Bang. We look out and we see the Big Bang. When you say there's a missing echo, go out and look with the microwave background and see the cosmic microwave background, which is measured and is predicted as part of the Big Bang, and is measured to exquisite accuracy. 1 part in a million. It has the characteristics. It's the best.
What, the CMB?
Body background in nature.
What, the CMB? You're saying?
The cosmic microwave.
That's
background,
not
yes.
true. Okay, you say in your book.
You go out and measure it and tell me it isn't true. But you know,
you say in your book.
I've been studying the CMB for a long time, and I know what's true.
Well, you say in your book, you talk about the distribution of chemical elements in the universe, and you say that, I mean, you use really colorful language. This is the big proof of the Big Bang.
The fact that lithium is predicted to be 1 part in 10 to the 10th.
Yeah, and I have
24%.
And I have so many.
Amazingly, that's what they work out to be.
And I have so many quotes, not only from Nature and physics essays, and from hundreds of scientists at respected institutions that say this, that say those predictions are historically false. They were adjusted after the data was observed and repeated, and this is now being documented.
Well,
Nature,
Well, I take personal offense to that because I've predicted the abundance of light elements in the Big Bang, and I didn't, and I just did it based on the best physics we could come up with, computer codes and uncertainties in nuclear reaction rates as measured in nuclear reactors. And to say that I fixed the data is obviously an offense to me personally.
All right, what do you say about this? In the journal Nature, 1990, a particular value for the baryon-to-photon ratio needs to be assumed ad hoc to obtain the predicted abundances. That is repeated and affirmed by hundreds of advanced agreed.
Photon ratio. All of the data only agrees for a specific value of the baryon-to-photon ratio. That's how you actually determine things. You know, you measure things, and you see, and you compare with theory, and you see what agrees. That's how we do science. So we've actually measured the baryon-to-photon ratio, and the amazing thing is, we do a completely independent measurement. So we measure it from nuclear reaction data, and we determine that the baryon-to-photon ratio is a certain number. And then we go out and measure the cosmic microwave background, which is a totally independent way. It doesn't depend on nuclear abundances or anything. And you know what? It gives exactly the same value. Now that is science.
Now, I can't speak to what you just said.
Well, of course you can't, but I can.
Yeah, and you can. It does contradict a signed statement by hundreds of scientists.
Yeah, but I told you, don't give me signed statements. That doesn't matter.
Well, they're scientists just like you are, Lawrence.
Scientists to sign a statement saying the Earth is flat. Are you going to run your show tomorrow?
No.
Saying, you know what? We don't really know the Earth is round.
No, the flat Earth guy is a Darwinist.
Decided to sign a statement.
All right.
I mean, come on.
The CMB.
Don't argue on the basis of that.
Let me ask you about the
science.
Let me ask you about the cosmic microwave background prediction. Wasn't it off by a factor of 10 universes? It didn't predict 3 degrees or 2.7, but 30 degrees. And so history shows that these predictions were adjusted after the fact. That's according to William Mitchell.
That's right. It's great you're saying it, but that's not that we actually measure the number. We measure the number, and it tells us what the number is.
But it's adjusted after the fact.
And then we run our theories. And, of course, we didn't know the expansion rate of the universe, and as we measure the expansion rate of the universe, we get better and better ways of testing it. And the point is, don't you understand that some scientists would love to find that all the data is false because they become famous? And the point is, scientists don't do this stuff.
I understand that.
Where we shake hands and wear hoods and say, look, let's not admit any evidence is false. Because the only way to become famous in science is to prove your colleagues wrong. If we could prove the Big Bang was wrong, I'd win a Nobel Prize for it.
Dr. Krauss, the other way to become famous, the best-selling atheist authors, to me,
Well, they're all atheists, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know what you're talking about.
They're all atheists.
Essentially, the first approximation all scientists are, yeah. Most of them aren't atheists. They don't even talk about it. As my friend Steve Weinberg says, most scientists don't even think enough about God to know if they're atheists. It's just irrelevant to what we do in the laboratory.
You know, U.S. medical doctors are not theoretical physicists, but they're trained in applied science, the biological life sciences.
Yeah, well,
they're not the most ignorant.
Data on who's what,
they're not the most ignorant group in the world, and 60% say God was involved in the origin of life. 60%.
Yeah, but medical doctors aren't evolutionary biologists.
I know that. I just said that, but it's applied science.
Mechanics believe that you know God was involved in the evolution of life. It's a nice statement, but I don't care whether 60% or 6%. I compare what the data tells me. I don't do things by votes or authority. That's what religion does, maybe. But science does things by looking out at the universe. And don't give me arguments about N% of people think this or that. You know what? 40. I mean, the fact that there are more. I mean, it's just amazing to me. If you could take polls of people. Do you know 50% of American adults think the sun orbits the Earth?
No, I don't. Well, I don't believe that.
The National Science Foundation does that study every year. Are you going to argue to me?
I don't,
classes,
Lawrence.
Hold on.
I don't believe
in classes we should teach that the sun orbits the Earth because 50% of people think that.
I bet you. I bet you not one.
Of education
I bet you not 100th. I bet you not 100th of 1% of U.S. medical doctors believe that. And I don't even believe the study anyway.
You can bet me all you want. I'm giving you a statistic which shows you if you want to take polls of people, you're going to find out the most ridiculous nonsense is believed by many people. And don't use that to validate your arguments. It just demeans your arguments.
Well, I agree with you that the truth isn't up for popular vote. I agree with that.
Okay,
the point is...
And the way we try and find the truth is to rule out... And in fact, science doesn't really, believe it or not, deal with truth. It deals with falsehoods. We make predictions, and if they don't agree with the observations, we know they're false. If they agree, it doesn't tell us it's the absolute truth. It tells us we're on the right track, and we keep exploring more and more and more and refining our ideas. That's why science changes. That's why science makes progress. That's why you can live in a universe now where you can talk to me on the phone or Skype me, whereas 100 years you couldn't, because science makes progress.
Not a single invention. We listed 100 inventions on this show, Real Science Friday.
Okay.
Not a single one required Darwinism. One of the members of the National Academy of Sciences,
well, you know,
Philip Skell, analyzed
natural selection is the basis of many vaccines, and you know,
Lawrence,
you can tell me. I mean,
Lawrence, Philip Skell analyzed
modern biology. You can't do biology without understanding the evolutionary basis.
That's
of
what
life.
Dobzhansky said.
You can tell me that, but again, it's just as ignorant as the rest of your statements.
Lawrence, that's what Dobzhansky.
I really have a
meeting
where I've got to go.
Could I make a last point?
Well, I've got a meeting with a postdoc and a graduate student where we're trying to actually go and do science.
All right.
I'm trying to argue with you on the basis of
very
scientific evidence, and you keep giving me this anecdotal stuff, and it's just not worth having a discussion. Because first of all, nothing I'm going to say, no data I'm ever going to talk to you about,
is
ever
true.
going to convince you of something that you've already decided is true.
That's not true.
Not the way science works.
That's not true, Lawrence. The New Testament says you can falsify Christianity. Could be falsified.
Great. We have in many cases.
That's not
well,
true.
We falsified most of the things in the Bible.
But I am open. Are you open to the possibility that Darwinism is false?
What do you mean Darwinism? You
evolution.
Make it sound like communism. Am I open to the possibility that all of evolutionary biology is based on a false premise? Well, there's that possibility, but it's incredibly remote given the fact that it's the basis of modern...
Well, Dr. Philip...
I am willing to argue that maybe Newton and Einstein and everything I know about physics is somehow wrong, but boy, it'd have to be an amazing conspiracy.
All right, well, Dr. Philip Skell of the NAS said he analyzed 100 years' worth of Nobel Prizes in biology, and he personally interviewed dozens of world-renowned scientists, and he said he could not find one Nobel Prize in biology in a century that depended on the theory of evolution or Darwinism.
He says that. But why do you actually take the National Academy of Sciences, the same organization, puts out a book, which you should get, which actually talks about evolution and explains the basis of it in modern science.
Yes, we went through
the National Academy, that group of the most esteemed scientists in the country, has, in fact, put out a book for the public.
I know.
Explaining the misconceptions that people like you have and why they're wrong.
There's a worldview bias. So people look at origins and they say, we know that you don't need a God. And that's an overselling of what we know.
I don't know that you don't need a God. The question is, do you or don't you? I don't know anything till I investigate it. That's why I'm a scientist.
Well, do you know? Do you
know everything before you investigate it. That's why you're a creationist.
Do you know that you don't need a God for origins? Do you know that?
No, absolutely not.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely not. And that's why I'm open-minded. But I demonstrate that based on what we see, there's no evidence for it. And that's an interesting result. And I do it with an open mind.
Well, how about the discovery?
Conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lawrence. God
okay,
bless.
bye-bye.
I appreciate you.